Hello, everyone. This is Stephanie Boozer with CUGC HQ, and I'm happy to welcome you to today's Connect webinar with Ivanti. Going to be talking about accelerating your adoption of Citrix Cloud, and I think they've got a lot of great information for us today. But before we dive in, I just have a couple of housekeeping things for you guys. So first of all, we are recording this webinar, so you will receive a link to that recording tomorrow. It's going to come in an email directly from GoToWebinar, so be on the lookout for that. Also, you have a question panel. You can submit your questions at any time. We'll be keeping an eye on those. Some of those we'll ask during the presentation, and some of those we'll save for the end. So just type your questions in as you have them. And finally, at the end of the webinar, I'll be sticking a link to a survey in the chat for you. It's short and anonymous, and it's for CUGC use only. So we hope you'll fill that out and give us feedback. All right, so moderating all of your amazing questions that you're going to ask today is Renee Raygard. Renee is a CTA, and she is also a mentor in our CUGC Women in Tech program, and I'm happy to welcome her today. Renee, would you like to say hello?
Sure. Thanks, Stephanie. I wanted to look forward to everyone's questions today and happy to be here.
Thanks so much. And from Ivanti, we have Justin Thurlow and Oliver Giordamena. They are going to kick us off here. Justin is a senior solutions architect and Oliver is a senior product manager. So I think we've got lots of good stuff coming your way. Before I hand the screen over to you, Oliver, I am going to kick off a couple more polls. I know some of you, while you were waiting to come in, there was a poll active, so we have a couple more questions for you. So without further ado, here's the first one. We want to know what your status is. So are you actively engaged within or planning a migration to Citrix Cloud? Citrix Cloud. So just get a rough idea of what's going on with everybody out there. All right, looks like so far a lot of no's. Give you a couple more seconds. All right, I'm going to close this one out. Oliver and Justin, I'm not sure if you can see these results, but it is 24% yes in the planning, 17% actively engaged with Citrix Cloud, and 59% no.
Thank you. Yeah, we can see those.
Okay, awesome. Sometimes they don't show up for everyone. Just a couple more questions for you. So how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted you? So let's see what we've got going on there. Looks like, oh, the numbers keep shifting around every time I think I have them. I'll give you just a few more seconds. Looks like no is in the lead right now. And all right, I'll share these. Okay, so there you go, 60% no and 27% yes in order to better support our remote workforce. All right, and one last question, and then I'm gonna turn you over. What do you see as your biggest challenge when working to adopt Citrix Cloud? And there's an other option down there. If you have an other, you can type it in the chat. So just a few more seconds. Looks like a lot of you are voting. All right, and close this one out. There's a lot of numbers here, so wow, it's no big front runner.
Yeah, quite an even split with a lot of realistic challenges that we'll be able to discuss today, Ollie.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can tell you in the chat, it says difficulty in comparing Citrix Cloud to other options. Don't trust cloud 100%. Ooh, Still focused on premises, and a lot of customers have concerns moving from a perpetual to a subscription license model. So there's some of your other, I'm doing air quotes, other answers.
Thank you.
All right, Oliver, I'm sending you the screen right now, and you can get us going.
Perfect. Thank you. So hopefully you can see my screen.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephanie. So as Stephanie introduced us, Justin and I are going to be walking through the User Workspace Manager solution from Ivanti, talking about how it can better help you enable and migrate to Citrix Cloud, whilst also covering a high-level overview of how UWM solutions and tools can help you provide a more productive and seamless user experience across any Citrix platform. So our vision for UWM, what we always go back to as we're building our solutions, is to provide a set of tools that will enable you to manage, secure, and personalize the modern workspace. When we talk about the modern workspace, that can be anything from physical to virtual, VDI to RDSH. The Ivanti portfolio is vast. If you're not familiar with Ivanti, it's a accumulation of various acquisitions through the last couple of years, ranging from Landesk to Heat to AppSense, which is now what we describe as User Workspace Manager. And UWM sits within the unified endpoint management pillar of Ivanti. That's where we offer endpoint management and discovery. We offer patch and security solutions, some of which I'll touch upon today, more so the security and privilege management and workspace. And we really focus on the user workspace and the user DNA within that workspace as well. So a brief overview of UWM, the landscape, where we sit, and typically where we offer value when it comes to industry and scale within those various different industry pillars. So you can see here our biggest plays are generally within the financial services, manufacturing, healthcare, and government.
And Ollie, I just wanted to add real quick on this one.
Yep.
And again, hi everybody. My name is Justin Thurlow. I'm an FD out of Minnesota. And prior to Ivanti, I spent 11 years as a Citrix SE up here in Minnesota. And now I've been with Ivanti for the last 10 years. And I find it very synergistic that the solution set that we offer in user workspace management at Ivanti applies very much to the same broad spectrum of vertical markets that the Citrix Zen App and Zen Desktop solutions do. When I was selling Citrix, we would approach all different industries, from finance to healthcare. But what we were really looking for is larger scale IT shops where they get value out of centralized computing. And now here at Ivanti, we're taking that another step further of providing significant value as you've centralized those applications to controlling them, delivering them, patching them, and making them more friendly to the user. So I just wanted to provide the commentary that these vertical markets very much are in the same space as the Citrix customers typically are.
No, thank you, Justin, and that's a great point as well. I think these have stayed very much the same as we've walked through and been through the journey of UWM through AppSense and now Ivanti, and the two have always been very closely coupled and partnered, if you will. And as you've said, regardless of the industry pillar, there's value that can be found across any of these different industries, whether it's healthcare, where you're working across multiple devices, potentially within one area of a hospital or a service center. It could be financial, with clerks working across different devices within a bank, and government across various different sites as well. And it's all around centralizing the management and providing a seamless and consistent user experience as well. But you can see here the industries and just roughly how big we can scale when it comes to these different pillars as well. And when we're building out our solutions, we always try and keep a focus on the relevant customer challenges of today and how those solutions can help solve problems for the customers in 2020 as we are. Office 365 and the adoption of that is obviously a huge challenge for a number of customers today. The adoption rate of Office 365 is ramping up significantly and has been doing for the last couple of years now. And when you're trying to adopt that solution or migrate from a legacy Office version, especially where you may be on a non-persistent VDI solution as well, or where you're looking to support a mixed mode of Office versions, UWM can provide a way of ensuring that experience and those settings are consistent across the Office versions, whilst also enabling you to deliver the virtual cache from Office 365 either via our personalization capabilities or via a VHD and our cache roaming feature as well. When it comes to Windows 10, we had the Windows 7 end of life, end of maintenance deadline hit this year, and anyone who hasn't already made that step is very much in the process of doing so towards Windows 10. And we've got a number of tools that enable the admin to best manage that, provide a seamless experience throughout the Windows 7 to 10 migration, whilst also securing the user through our privilege management solution, and then supporting a seamless migration through the various Windows 10 iterations. And that may even be taking your Windows 10 platform from on-premises as it is today to a virtual cloud environment as well, cloud VDI. And finally, talking about cloud, I would say from an Ivanti and UWM perspective, we probably have a 60-40 or 70-30 split, where 70% are still either not taking huge steps towards cloud for some of the reasons that were put in the chat here. They don't trust it. They don't see the incentive. A lot of the non-technical staff within an organization may see it as a buzzword and like to push it, but when you speak to the technical guys, they need incentive. They need to be able to ensure that it's going to be secure and deliver a better, or at least an equal user experience. And we're working through that journey with them as well. So we're looking at ways to enable remote workers through Intune and autopilot support, again through our seamless integration with Citrix Cloud, hybrid capabilities within the solutions, and building out a managed service unified IT platform across the Ivanti portfolio as well. Justin, is there anything you'd like to add on any of those three?
Well, I definitely wanted to just mention that all of these have driven more adoption of user workspace management rather than eliminated the need for it. As customers have implemented Office 365, we've seen more of a mixed mode and more challenges around maintaining the persistence of their settings and turning on Office 365 and checking who's using it. Those kind of things are more difficult rather than easier. And the same is definitely true of Windows 10. We have seen more customers express frustration around login times or inconsistencies around the start menu as they have tried to move to Windows 10. Same with administrative right challenges. So those things that we thought were going away by some of these fixes from Windows 7 to Windows 10 have actually been exacerbated.
Great, thanks, Justin. Okay, so going into slightly lower level explanation of our solutions here. So we keep coming back to this and what we believe to be a productive user workspace. So again, we're focusing on the user element of the workspace here. And from our perspective, it needs to be visible. So you need to understand what you have, where the users are, and you know what they have installed and their experience throughout. Apologies for any background noise you hear here. And we talk about Ivanti Cloud helping you to do that. So that's not a prereq of User Workspace Manager. You do not have to put anything in the cloud to adopt the solution. That's just an option where you get real-time insights and discovery capabilities across your estate. And then there's the Management Center, which is what can be an on-premises solution that can help you deploy our agents and configurations, discover and also audit and run events and alerts based upon the activity on the workstations as well. When we talk about security and securing a user workspace, application control is where we play in this particular area, and we'll talk through that in more detail shortly. Any workspace needs to be healthy to be productive, and Performance Manager can help you manage that, specifically when we're talking about the CPU and memory allocations and shares across either a single or multi-user device. The device needs to be flexible, so the user doesn't have to be attached to or committed to a particular device. Where a user needs to be, whether that's a virtual environment connected to a thin client, whether it's a physical device, what they see, where they log in, everything that they get as part of their experience needs to be consistent. And Environment Manager policy can help you orchestrate that workspace to ensure that their requirements are suited to where they're logging into. And finally, it needs to be consistent. So two big portions of a user profile are the user settings, so their preferences within Outlook, what the desktop may look like, where particular icons are stored, and then the user's data, so that would be their profile data, their documents, their desktop, their pictures as well. And those are the two areas of which a user looks for when they're moving between different devices or potentially migrating from on-premises to cloud as well. Those settings and user data need to be there and present in the place that they left off the last time as well, and we can help deliver that. And
there was something I wanted to add there too, Ollie, was just that for the Citrix user community, Ivanti has had this long relationship with Citrix, and because of that, we've got visibility down that HCX and ICA channel down to the user's endpoint. And because of that, we have this flexibility of our Environment Manager policy. What we can do is see the IP address of the machine the user is actually sitting in front of, not the machine they're connecting to. We can get all types of information like the published application name or the screen resolution of the user, and then make changes within their session on the basis of where that user is coming from, or the type of device they're logging in from, or the specific published application that they're trying to connect to. We can then change security policy or application settings, group membership, or really anything, copying files around, you name it, with that Environment Manager policy. That flexibility is really important, but it becomes particularly key for Citrix users that we can see down the channel.
Perfect, thank you, Justin. And just diving into a bit more detail on this, so I've talked about the user DNA previously, and that's where we really focus. When we talk about a migration or working within a virtual environment that's often non-persistent, decoupling the user from devices is vital to ensure that, you know, all you need to worry about is managing that platform, ensuring it's readily available for them and that they've got a session active, and we can take care of everything else in relation to the user. And just going into these in slightly more detail, so Justin's just talked about the visibility that we can have within a Citrix environment, the security, the privilege management, enforcing compliance when it comes to license control. Talk about that in slightly more detail the next couple of slides. And also discovering and managing user data. So we see the user data element as a security element as well as a consistency one. You know, understanding what data you have, and you know, where the user is storing that data is key to ensuring that you maintain compliance and visibility over your environment. The health part, again, maximizing the hardware that you have through Performance Manager. The more users you can get on the box, the better, the more money it's going to save you. Flexibility, so the policy engine from Environment Manager delivers policy on demand. It delivers it multi-threaded at logon should you wish to apply policies there, and through that as well, the user can access some of the self-service capabilities that can help them maintain their own profile and the health of it. And finally, going back to the consistency, it's decoupling the user, it's capturing and roaming the user DNA, and it's constantly automating that onboarding process. So whether it be physical or virtual, wherever that might be, regardless of the device, everything's always backed up, ready for the next session. Okay, and we recently ran a survey through Dimensional and just put out some of our key solutions to a vast array of IT professionals across various different industry pillars to see where they found most value if at all, with our solutions inside the Citrix environments. You can see here, reducing logon times is always going to be a critical play. It gives time back, it gives productivity back, and essentially that's a big ROI opportunity. But some of the other things, simplified image management, least privilege enforcement through application control, and more users on existing hardware. Again, they're all key but very simple paths to return on investments. Justin, based on your experience with Citrix and your real world implementation, what are some of the things that you've seen in terms of
there's a couple of really important points. Kind of going down this list real quick. The faster login times, I like to say that we don't sell magic, we don't sell pixie dust, we fix problems. So we get faster login times if a customer has long logon times. I've seen Citrix environment logon times as bad as a minute, 2 minutes, even 5 minutes. In almost all of those cases, we're able to get it down to 10 to 15 seconds for user logon time. And that's a pretty compelling user experience improvement, but not necessarily dollar savings improvement. In terms of the dollar savings, the ability to put more applications onto Citrix and reduce vastly our silos or amount of images or even layers can dramatically improve our cost of ownership on the platform by reducing the number of virtual servers, by reducing the number of infrastructure components. The reduction of silos happens because we can control the poorer performing applications. We can enable bad applications that maybe require an administrator privilege. We can control applications through locking down keyboard or pulling buttons off an application potentially with our environment manager. So there's all different types of ways to support janky old applications on your Citrix environment and yet still give a good quality of service by not bringing down that machine for other users. That drives up your density, lowers the number of silos you need to support the server infrastructure, and lowers your overall cost on Citrix.
Perfect. Thank you,
Justin. On that slide, is there some specific examples that you could maybe give on reducing logon time significantly?
Absolutely. So we have a number of ways that we do that. And some of the customers that I've worked with where we've gone from 3 minutes down to 15 seconds, they relate to the group policy settings, having to come across a broad network to a domain controller across the world. Profile bloat, so profiles that get up to a gig, 2 gig, 10 gig because of poor application data that gets saved into that bloated profile. And then login scripts. There are a number of login scripts and just processing for things like map drives and map printers that process serially, one after another, and they wait for failure. So if I'm trying to map 5 drives and 2 of them are unavailable, I have to wait for each independently and successively to fail before I will complete my logon. So those are all some examples and significant customer impact, because if you're in a call center and you're trying to support a customer who's waited on hold for 3 minutes, the last thing you want to do is have them wait on hold for another 2 minutes with you while you're waiting for your machine to get logged into your call center app. So significant improvement. And definitely beneficial for financial industries, traders, high dollar value employees, healthcare, of course, which is really important these days. So those are some good examples of login times.
Thanks.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, I'm going to step through some of the examples on a high level as well. So Justin's talked about the 90% reduction in logon times that we've seen. 50% more users per XenApp server. Talk through in more detail how we get to that. 30% reduction in batch migration costs to Zen Desktop, and a 30% reduction in help desk calls. And this data is based upon case studies and previous surveys that we've done with our existing customer base over a number of years as well.
Yeah, let me talk just real briefly about that, users per server, because it is a very important element. It ties back to our performance management. A recent customer, fairly large health insurer, saw a dramatic increase in their user density by reducing the amount of CPU and memory of some of their lower priority items. For example, they have a bunch of videos that play right when the user logs in and opens up Internet Explorer. So by dialing down the amount of resources that are available to that application, very granular control of only on the first time login, I want to control this specific application for this group of users, and I want to dial it to this specific percentage of the CPU. We were able to adjust those numbers to prove out that even on virtualized infrastructure, they were reducing their costs by like 37% just by driving up user density over 50%. So it was a significant improvement, real world impact, very quick return on investment, and paid for the rest of the solution. But again, it's not magic. It required there to be a bad application like Internet Explorer playing some flash video. So there you go. You have a real terrible user experience because now your CPU and memory are tapped. We dial those down and fix them and can improve the quality of service.
Perfect, thank you. And then again, here's some more specifics across various different sectors where we've seen success in real world examples. See the financial example there in the top left, reducing from 160 to 90. When it comes to the ZARP server count, health, increasing concurrent users by 100%. The financial institution there, taking their IT support tickets significantly down from 300 to 10, and a huge reduction in logon times for Auto Trader, out of the UK.
And those tickets are generally going to be things like profile corruption related tickets. I know we have a broad audience and we can't all interact, but my guess would be if I asked you in your help desk, do you see some profile resets? We have a lot of customers here that are not Ivanti customers. I think about 70% of the attendees don't have our solutions. And when I find rooms full of customers that aren't using a solution to manage profiles and ask the question about profile corruption, profile reset, it's a fairly common support incident. And it depends on your mix of applications, but customers that are using roaming profiles in a load balanced Citrix environment are typically going to find a lot of profile corruption unless they're managing their profile. And that is one of the just standard issue functions of our user workspace management, managing that user's workspace. It really is a profile management solution. We do a virtualization on that user's profile, and it's an enterprise class solution where we eliminate the profile corruption.
Okay, and here's some more examples from Deakin University, for example, where the logon times are reduced. You can see the quote there. I won't spend too long on these because you can get these chucked out. And as diving in further to the Auto Trader example, and as Justin talked on previously, you know, where it comes to group policies and logon scripts, where we can run multi-threaded, we can run them synchronously and apply potentially hundreds or thousands of actions either at logon or in our various different logon triggers. We don't always have to apply policies at logon whilst the user's waiting for the shell to launch and the desktop to appear. We can apply things also at desktop created. So once the user's been hit with that desktop and they're productive, we can then subsequently apply whatever we need to, such as map drives or printers, as an example, which means that the user gets what they need, but they're not sat watching the clock and waiting for the logon to come down. And the standardized image as well. So this particular customer had over 30,000 endpoints. They worked to bake our image, our agents and configurations into their base image, ensuring it was consistent, secure, productive right throughout, using Performance Manager to peg particular runaway applications, using privilege management to reduce the admin rights, using Environment Manager to deliver policy on demand. And you can see there that they were very happy with the image that that resulted in as well.
Ollie, this one brings up another good point to just mention to our Citrix community here. Our solutions of Ivanti User Workspace Management, they apply to Citrix environments, but they also apply to VMware environments and physical desktops. And I see that as an actual big advantage for a Citrix administrator, because if you're running Citrix and you're trying to leverage either Microsoft Profiles or the Citrix Profile Management solutions, those solutions only really affect your Citrix environment. And it is very difficult to manage a user's physical desktop, their VMware session, and their Citrix session, unless you have a solution like Ivanti for managing that user's profile across all of them. And that becomes a benefit because now it's much easier to migrate applications or user sets into our Citrix environment, because we can capture the user's settings and mix of applications and make them available for that user on day one when they sign into my Citrix environment. And if my desktop in the cloud that I'm connecting to, if that looks just like my physical desktop at work, I'm much more likely to continue to use it and report a positive experience to my management chain. So it makes projects more successful, users happier, and increases your Citrix footprint because we have that heterogeneous support and the ability to manage not just the Citrix environment profile, but the user's desktop profile or their session on VMware.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, so dive slightly deeper into some of the tools. So again, just going into Environment Manager where the user experience is a problem or a challenge. Justin has just elaborated on how we can roam those settings across physical, virtual, cloud, on-premises devices, thus reducing cost and complexity of OS migrations and providing consistency where it comes to the end user. The slow logon we've talked about in a lot of detail already in the profile-related help desk calls. And then as well, going back to the visibility. So whilst you're working through migration, you need to ensure that you have visibility of the activity, the events that are going on the workspace, be able to collect those events centrally and report upon them, and trigger alerts based upon particular warning signs or notifications as well. And we can do all that centrally via our management center capability. And just to expand upon the management center a bit more as well, when you're talking about physical or virtual devices and pushing down our agents and configurations where it's non-persistent, and you've got the choice of baking the agents and maybe a base configuration in, and then you can also deploy the configurations as you make changes and based upon various different triggers, whether that be a computer started on a non-persistent device or when the network's available as well. So our deployment mechanism is very much adapted to and based on our long history with Citrix as well, ensures that we can deliver configurations regardless of the platform and regardless whether or not it's persistent or non-persistent, as and when required. And just a couple of key tools there as well. So when we talk about shifting away from group policy, moving those into Environment Manager and applying them multi-threaded across our various different logon triggers, we have a tool as well that can make that a lot simpler for you within Environment Manager, which will go into GPMC, snap out exactly what you want to migrate across, and then export that into your configuration ready to deploy across your estate as well. And we're also working on and this will be available in our next release in August, a start menu designer, which will allow you to configure a per user Windows 10 start menu, capturing both Win32 and Windows Store apps. So again, given this is maybe you're using this on as an app server, this would be per user, and you can define that start menu and the tile groups based upon various different AD conditions, such as the user's OU, user group, whatever that might be. You may wish to have one start menu and application list for finance users and one maybe for HR or whomever that might be in that example as well. So just a couple of the key tools.
I wanted to just add a little bit on that group policy one, because I get asked a lot of questions about that when I present into smaller group settings. Customers will frequently ask, like, why would I manage group policy settings with Environment Manager instead of just managing it with group policy? And I have found that the flexibility is one of the most important elements, where we can provide some conditions to the group policy. And while it's true you could potentially build conditionality into group policy through things like WMI queries or PowerShell, it is very convoluted and complex, and it takes time to develop and takes time to support. With our Environment Manager, the group policy settings, we can now import sort of all of the settings for a user using this group import tool, and then provide some fine tuning or adjustments based on their settings. You may find that some customers are, mapping drives this way. It becomes complicated and a little bit slow if I have to reach over the network for group policy and constantly refresh a bulk of information. And so our settings of group policy within Environment Manager, it's the exact same setting. So you have the same list of controls, but now those controls apply locally and with a level of conditionality to them. So multi-threaded, local, conditional, those are all significant benefits to how we apply group policy settings. But fundamentally, it's the same group policy setting. It's just a difference in how it's administered and then how quickly it processes. So it's kind of an embrace and extend model. Ultimately, it is the same settings that we're applying. We just have a tool now where we can import them and apply them locally much faster.
Perfect, thank you, Justin. Okay, step 3. And file director, so I'll touch briefly on this, and where we talk about Environment Manager being the orchestration of the desktop and the roaming of the user settings. File director is all focused on the user data. So where you want to capture that user data, gain insights from it and manage it, file director can do that across Windows 7, Windows 10, any server OS as well. It can provide files on demand from either cloud or on-premises storage, so very tightly coupled with NetApp storage. We've also got connectors to OneDrive, Google, and Box storage now as well, and we can deliver those files on demand to server 2016, server 2019, or Windows 7 or Windows 10, which again, when it comes to local storage, it's very difficult, where OneDrive, for example, supports a terabyte, or depending upon your license, if not more, per user. You're not going to be able to support a terabyte per user when it comes to syncing that local storage down, and that gives you a better play into migrating your existing user profile data off your on-premises storage securely within enterprise management tools to cloud storage, potentially with Office 365 licenses that you're already paying for. So you can free up a lot of storage costs there by migrating that user data via file director to OneDrive or another cloud platform as well. And with that, and especially prevalent on a Citrix environment or inside of a Citrix environment, file director will also actively clean up the local cache. So where you have files on demand delivered on a XenApp environment, for example, the user double clicks on a file, it's streamed down on demand instantly. Once they're done with that file, they've saved it and we've synced the changes back, you can then run an automated job to clean up the local copy of that so there's nothing residing on disk. And that can obviously keep your disk clean and result in a zero touch on local disk when it comes to delivering user data to your Citrix environments as well. And with that, and with all of this functionality, you've also got great data insights into what's going on with the user data, how much throughput you're having, how much data you need to migrate, and which users are in sync as well. Obviously, Citrix offer file share, and that's got a huge focus on user data as well, and we'll be looking to partner up more closely with Citrix to try and add more value either with or on top of that solution as well. So we're not pushing this as a competitive product, if you will, but we're giving you the options of what it can add maybe in collaboration with, or on top of your existing Citrix solutions. I've talked there about the local cache management. There's a slide here, more detail. The other thing is it can also pause the log off if required until all the user data is synced and backed up. So in a non-persistent world where a user's working between maybe physical and virtual, that can be quite relevant.
Also, Ollie, we often will see the Citrix use case of where we're leveraging just file redirection on our Citrix Zen desktop or Zen app, and that's being redirected to a local share because the data is sitting right next to your OS and your applications right there in the data center. And then what we'll leverage File Director for is to synchronize that share to the user's local machine. So that way their desktop and their home directory that follows that user around from their physical desktop into their non-persistent VDI desktop, because they launched their non-persistent VDI and all the stuff's there. But it's not actually there, it's just sitting in the data center where it always was. We're just synchronizing the two. So it's a really intelligent way to manage user data.
Absolutely. Great. Okay, and I've talked there about the cloud migration. It's just a very high level overview of how that takes it through there and the various devices that can work upon. The other thing to add here is that, and what this slide doesn't illustrate, is that File Director is supported on Mac, iOS, Android, and shared virtual devices as well. And some of the dashboards that I've talked about in the overview here, through the syslog that we spit out from the File Director server, you can use Splunk or free third-party tools that we provide scripts for, as well on our marketplace that likes to get visibility such as this around throughput, downloads, and which users are in sync as well. Okay, application control. So when it comes to admin rights in an estate, and reducing those as part of a compliance play, or just generally looking to reduce your attack vector whilst potentially impeding the malware spread through that vector as well. Application control can enable you in elevating rights on demand, so you only elevate the token for the process or the function in which it's required within the session. You don't get an elevated token throughout. And it can also help you both reduce and increase the level of rights for a standard user and or an admin user as well. So you can bring the admin user's rights down to target particular functions, say in the control panel or within the registry, work dependent upon their role, whatever they may be doing. And you can also then choose to elevate up a standard user purely for what they need that elevation for as well. So you remove that whole session admin token, which is and as Microsoft will, I'll demonstrate here shortly, will justify is the single biggest risk when it comes to recent attacks and preventing the root cause. Application control, so an out of the box setting that will allow you to, based upon NTFS owner of a particular executable, application control will intercept the execution call and verify that the owner is trusted within your organization. And that comes from a list of default trusted owners. That'll be system, local admins, whomever that might be. And should a file owned by a standard user then try and be executed, so an example where they may download something malicious, something may come in via Outlook, all innocently to the user, but it could potentially be malicious to the organization. We verify that, and that's a tick box that you can hit right from the word go to get that secured straight out of the box. Talking about license compliance, so we have the per device app access. We can control access to a particular host or application based upon connecting device rules that we can set. So you can put that application control agent on your Citrix server that can then monitor who's connecting to that server, who's accessing applications on there as well, based upon where they're connecting from and other criteria that you can set as well. And Justin provided an example on that shortly. And then finally as well, one of the big plays is web content. So the URL redirection is a simple but effective method to ensure that a user isn't directed anywhere they shouldn't be or doesn't hit any page that they shouldn't see. And that process is automated to take them to somewhere more secure based upon your requirements. as well. And you know, I'll leave Justin to talk about this, but we talk about user settings and admin rights and vulnerabilities here, and you can see, you know, how critical they are based upon how removing admin rights would have helped when it came to critical vulnerabilities in 2019. Justin, do you want to elaborate on that application control?
Yeah, for sure. We've seen a number of benefits for Citrix users of application control. One would be on a Zen app server, you'd never give somebody an admin right. So we can now potentially enable administrative for a specific problem application that you might need to deliver out to your Zen app servers. We also frequently see this in Zen desktop. In these VDI instances, I've seen a lot of organizations that are just pushing out non-persistent, so PBS or MCS created Zen desktop images, and they just give users admin because they figure, wow, what the heck, you know, the user's going to have to change that environment a little bit anyway. The environment goes away after the user's done, and it's all in our data center. But the reality is you're creating a huge attack vector, and that is a surface area that a lot of the common vulnerabilities are attacking, is just client users that are running out-of-date operating systems with applications like legacy Internet Explorer. And so the vulnerabilities are a big concern that we can control with application control through granular application of admin rights, and also controlling what the user can do and where they can go. We have some network functionality that's a part of this product as well. But you mentioned the user device licensing or device-based licensing. And that is an area where our customers have leveraged application control on Citrix to save money. Vendors will tell you if you install an application onto a Citrix Zen app server or into your Zen desktop gold image, then you need to be licensed for anybody that might potentially connect to that server or that desktop and launch that application. And it just isn't a fair position to be put in as an IT organization. Our tool provides technical enforcement of device license. So if I say these 50 devices are licensed for a given application, and then I put that application on my Zen desktop with application control that says only allow it to run from one of these 50 devices, then only when those machines connect will the application launch. And if a user opens up a thin client and connects from a machine that isn't a part of the pool, if they double click on the icon or if they file Explorer to it and try and launch the application, they'll get a message from application control that that application has been denied because they don't meet the licensing requirements. And that's brandable by your organization. So we've seen that in some education applications, some legal applications, some healthcare applications, some banking applications, where you are licensing a very specific number of devices for an app, and we can help enforce that license so that you're not subject to a risk of an audit or a license management event with your vendor.
Thanks, Justin. And yeah, we're a bit more. Sorry, was this? Okay, and just to elaborate more on this, and again, the deck will be shared, and just a higher level overview of the value we can offer when it comes to privilege management across Citrix environment, particularly here in focusing on Zen desktop as well. Sorry, missed a slide there. And performance manager. So we've talked about the user identity and how we can help within CPU and memory as well. So the user identity, the solution that we have inside of performance manager, where we talk about CPU throttling, and that's preventing the runaway or the rogue processes from consuming excessive CPU. And that's where we've seen a lot of the success stories with a lot more users getting onto a particular machine, users, organizations reducing the volume of Zen app servers that they have as well. And some of those case studies that we've just shown, and more that we can share, tells you how that can really make a huge difference in ensuring that where CPU is required by the critical applications, it's there, and that leads on to the smart scheduling as well. So you can configure policy to target particular applications and say, these are the these are the critical plays, these are the ones that always require resource, these come top of the list, whereas everything else would get, you know, a lesser resource allocation based upon their requirements. If it's running in the background and using up too much, we'll snip that off as well. And that just means that the user's always got a responsive desktop and experience where it's critical to them to have that as well. And memory trimming, so trimming the working sets based upon application events and states. We monitor those where an application is particularly potentially idle, or where memory again needs to be allocated or shared across particular user sets. Then we can do that to ensure that each user has got the resource that they need, and any particular function, task, or application that using too much of that where it's not deemed as critical, we will set that down as well. And on a lower level, that's ultimately how we achieve some of the reductions and ROIs that we have when it comes to user density and responsiveness when it comes to the user experience as well.
And there, I will just say that I have definitely heard from so many customers that when seeing this information, they'll say, well, Citrix has fair sharing, Citrix has memory trimming. And I will just say I've been in this, you know, doing this for over 20 years at both Citrix and AppSense Ivanti. And there is an incredible amount of improvement that you can make with our performance manager on most environments. Because if you look around, you will find either you have like a ton of agents, like for example, leveraging Tanium and McAfee and Symantec, and one security product after another, and each of them independently takes 5% of the CPU. And then when you add 2 or 3 of them, they start scanning each other and get worse and worse. I've seen organizations where 80% of the CPU is consumed on boot for the first 10 minutes by security applications. And those can be dramatically improved by our performance manager and just saying, you know what, go ahead and run, just dial it back a little bit. You can never use more than 3% of the CPU. Take a little longer to scan everything, it's just fine. And it's remarkable the level of performance gain that you can get. Or even if it's not technically a bad application, we see a lot of bad actors. Like for example, how many tabs are open on your browser right now? Maybe for some of you it's 2 or 3, but maybe for some of you it's 16 or 24. Every single page that you open up is consuming active memory in that session. And with our performance manager, we can trim those out. We can also block the creation of new tabs or windows. Set a limit, you can only open up 4, or set a finite amount of RAM that each user can consume before they start getting warnings. All of those things can really improve the user density, extend the life of your hardware, and provide ROI.
Thank you, Justin. And very, very briefly, a couple of things coming soon. Within Environment Manager policy, we're going to be looking to support your Active Directory conditions to set your policy against. Some enhanced real-time sensors. So this is the real-time analytics offered out of our Ivanti Cloud to really drill into logon performance, application performance, and other such factors as well. The ability to elevate the user token on demand when it comes to the Windows 10 settings application and the functions within there. Similar such functionality when it comes to the Windows 10 start menu, context menu, and elevating on demand where those applications require. And also the URL redirection support for Edge browser when it comes to AC. A couple of resources that I've included here. It's a lot more when you get to the User Workspace Manager homepage. There's a couple of solution briefs that we've talked about in a white paper, and a case study that's done with EDF Energy as well when it comes to UWM and Citrix, and you can find many more case studies and others resources on our website as well. And that concludes from Justin and I's behalf.
Thanks. I do have a few questions. One, in moving to the Citrix Control Plane Cloud offering, we are able to decrease on-prem complexity. Is Ivanti planning on offering a cloud compliant component to shift the UWM management components away from on-prem resources?
Yes, so when it comes to managing UWM from on-premises, you can currently put the environment manager capabilities and the management capabilities inside of a cloud-hosted environment, whether it be a private cloud today, so either inside Azure or AWS, or you can run a hybrid model where a portion of that is in the cloud, such as the database, and others, such as the IIS servers that may be required for environment managers, sit on-prem. And we're also working to add those capabilities and integrate them into our Ivanti Cloud platform as well. So we're looking for a full cloud solution further down the line, whilst also maintaining our on-premises solution as well.
Is that cloud solution in general audience, or I'm not sure where your cloud solution.
Let me actually talk about that just for 1 second, and that is, I've had some customers that have migrated their database to the cloud that's been there for 6 months plus. We've supported the back end SQL platform as a service for quite some time. We also have customers that are leveraging our servers in the cloud, which is managed by them. Ollie, on our roadmap, we also, in addition to leveraging either the SQL database in the cloud or leveraging our servers in kind of an environment in the cloud, we're also looking at development options for more fully cloud enabled, so both a hosted solution and potentially just like a web browser management console. Can you talk a little bit about what our plans are there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Ivanti Cloud platform is our unified IT managed service platform where we're looking to deliver all our capabilities from our analytics, our discovery, and our reporting, and we're looking to host and manage our capabilities out of there. So any configurations that you build, any policies that you want to deploy, all come from that managed service, and that'll be a private tenant provision to you as part of your Ivanti Cloud subscription as well. And we're working to put the UWM capabilities that we've talked about purely out of there, so there's no requirement for on-premises infrastructure to deliver our services. Any further questions?
How about how would you recommend deploying User Workspace Manager agents to non-persistent devices?
Justin, do you want to talk through that?
Yeah, I'll take that for sure. So no, that's definitely something I help customers with all the time. It's relatively straightforward. What we want to do is make sure that the gold image is working well. So in our base image, we apply all of our agents so that they are installed. We apply some base configurations. We verify that that machine is connected to our management infrastructure. Then what we do is we stop our Ivanti services on that machine. We delete the computer. We set those from our management center, and then we set those services all to start back up automatically. You then can close your image, clone it out, and as the children spin up, they already have our agent, they already have a relatively recent version of our configuration, and they know where our servers are to check into. They check in as a new machine, it creates a new object, and it'll download any potential changes that have been made to the configuration or any updated agents as may be required. But the process is typically the same. There's just a small little bit of cleanup on the local client and in our management center. And basically, we're just making sure the base image works.
Great. I have a few more questions, but maybe we could just answer those offline when we send them out. Or Stephanie, I'm not sure if it's okay to go over.
Yeah, is there maybe, we can probably go like another minute or so if there's one that stands out to you that's a good one.
There was a couple questions around licensing, like how is it licensed? The different products, are they from modules or user license per
Yeah,
machine?
each of the components that we talked about is licensable as an individual application. So you can license Environment Manager, or you can license Performance Manager, or App Control, or File Director, or the cloud. Or we have a bundle where you get all of them, which is called the User Workspace Management license. Generally speaking, we have found it saves our customers money to do named user licensing. And named user licensing is just, you manage that list of people, and people can float in and out of the pool, but you have to know who the licenses are attributable to, and then we don't care how many machines they're connecting from. Because with most productivity environments, you're talking a couple of machines per user. Now, we do have some healthcare customers that are leveraging Zen Desktop and concurrency. And if you're in an environment where you have a finite number of computers and you're working with or you're working with a heavily regulated kind of concurrent model, we can potentially license those devices or concurrency. But by far the most common is named user licensing.
Great, thanks. One last question is comparing your product, WIM, and FSLogix. Sound very similar. Is there any comments that what differences between them from your product?
I think where it comes to FSLogix is the most commonly raised competitor. FSLogix does a very small portion of what we do, and when it comes to the consistency element, they take things and put them inside of a VHD and shift them from A to B. That works generally well within smaller environments. Potentially how well that scales across the larger organizations is, I think, either yet to be seen, or we've seen a reluctance for customers to do that based upon the requirements on the storage and the file shares as well. So that's one small element, and we can do that VHD cache roaming part and that's a very small part of our policy orchestration as well. They can do a couple of things within profile privilege management, whereas where it comes to blocking or hiding applications as well. But generally speaking, when you talk about the license control, the performance management that we offer, the policy on demand across any platform, the consistency and user experience, they're worlds apart in the capabilities, and it's a very, very small portion of what we can do that they offer.
Yeah, and I would just emphasize that, like in particular with our environment manager, that's the one that most of the time, if a customer is looking at WEM or FSLogix, that's the tool that is the comparable one from Ivanti that manages our user workspace environment. For a customer that is really wondering, do I need the extra Ivanti or can I get away with WEM, I would really recommend taking a tour of our console with one of our SEs. As you go through the environment manager console and see things like our ability to log, to apply things at 3 different stages of the user's login, before the session, before the desktop, or after the desktop's been created. The ability to do things like create a starting signature, or link to a particular mailbox, or get rid of the Alt F4 keystroke combination. There's just hundreds of different technical things that we can do inside of Environment Manager that there's just no capability to do it all within WEM, FSLogix, or Liquidware Labs, whatever the case may be, in terms of what you're trying to compare it to. The Environment Manager solution, enterprise class, very, very feature rich, and it just really improves those login times and fixes those application issues that some of those other products don't really do. But if you have just a core basic need of putting things onto a vDisk and taking them off the vDisk, well, that FSLogix does particularly well. So it just depends on what your needs are. And as I say, I recommend taking a tour of the console.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all my questions.
All right. I'm going to just grab the screen back really quickly. Looks like it's showing you a white screen.
There you go.
You got it? Okay. Fun with GoToWebinar. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate you guys spending an hour with us today and all the information that you gave us, Justin and Oliver. Renee, thanks for keeping an eye on those questions. Just really quickly before I let everyone go, just a reminder that even though our CUGC groups cannot meet locally in person, we are meeting online. So here's the calendar of what's going on the next few days. Obviously today we have Austin and Dallas going, and Australia and New Zealand, and our New York Metro group. So if you see your city, definitely cruise on over to mycugc.org and sign up. I put a link in the chat to our events calendar so you can find those more quickly. Also, you see our friend Patrick Coble. He's been at a lot of our CUGC to go meetings. He brought Baby Yoda with him. It's awesome. Also in the chat is the survey that I mentioned earlier. It's short and anonymous. We like to get your feedback on all of our webinars. And finally, if you opted in for a chance to win an Amazon gift card, just let you know that winner will be chosen at random, and we will announce the winner on Twitter. So be sure to follow us at myCUGC to find out who the winner is. And also just follow us on Twitter to keep up to date on everything that we have going on. That's the best place to get updates about our upcoming events, our Excel event, which are our day-long meetings, and all of our local events and other webinars. So we hope to see you on Twitter and also at mycugc.org. If you have any questions, you can always go there and check out our discussion forums, and maybe you can actually help someone else out in the forum. You might have an answer for somebody. So definitely check us out. And with that, I'm going to let everyone get back to your day. I hope you are all healthy and safe, and just thank you again for spending time with us. Thanks, Justin, Oliver, and Renee. Glad to have you with us today.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate it. Appreciate all you guys attending. Thanks a lot.
All right, bye, everyone.